Welcome to the MD podcast with me, Martin Hartley. I'm the Commercial Director for Imagine. Imagine Consulting are a professional services consultancy. We specialize in providing high value, low population subject matter experts to the banking and financial services sector. This is the show where I bring you MDs, leaders, C-suite execs from the banking and financial services sector. Everyone I speak to will be in senior positions and have interesting stories. But what we'll really be discussing is the challenges that they face, how they overcome them, and the future of the sector. This show aims to inspire and educate future leaders by telling the career stories of today's leaders. So without any further ado, I'm really excited for today's episode, and I'd like to welcome, and I'm joined by Samir DeMello, the former Global Head of Digital Innovation for Commercial Banking Technology at HSBC, and more recently, the CIO for Kinetic Bank, which of course is the newly launched digital app for HSBC. So Samir, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Martin. Thank you very much. I'm fine.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to really get to know Samir in detail today, as I've just mentioned there. So I want to take you all the way back to the very beginning, Samir. Tell us, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What was your family like?
I was born in Bombay, India. My school and university life was primarily in Bombay. I went to a local school in Bombay, followed by a degree at the Bombay University. I studied commerce, economics, and accountancy. And while studying at the university, I carried out part-time jobs and took on additional learning opportunities. In my early years, and even today, I've had an intense passion for aviation.
Okay, nice.
Especially flying planes.
Hence the picture behind you. And for those on audio, it's a great picture, a great photograph of an airplane.
Thank you.
Excellent. So did you know from an early age you wanted to get into the financial services sector then? Where did that, if that's true, and where did that passion spark from?
My initial passion, like I said, was in the aviation industry. But unfortunately, I could not convert that passion into a career because of a mild color blindness. So that was a huge disappointment for me at the time. I was so dejected and unsure about what I would do next. At that time, technology had started to boom in India, and you had a number of students opting for software engineering.
Yep.
It was considered a sound career to have. So I did my diligence. I decided to give technology a shot, especially software engineering. And I earned the opportunity to a 2-year degree course at an AppTech institute in Bombay at that time.
Nice. Okay. So the dream was to be a pilot then?
The dream was always to be a pilot. Unfortunately, I could not do it commercially, but I managed to do it privately.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. So what sort of planes have you flown then?
I've flown Pipers. It's mainly 4-seater aircrafts. I go around, the amazing views of London, sometimes to France. So it's really been very fulfilling.
Absolutely. Okay. We maybe we'd record a future episode in a plane, hey?
Definitely.
Okay. So obviously you went into software engineering, renowned as a good career choice. Absolutely. What was your first entry level job then into the financial services sector, or were you in more technology based roles before that?
Actually, I never thought I would have a career in technology nor a career in banking. I knew that I wanted to do something that excited me, something that gave me the opportunity to work internationally, something that was challenging and rewarding, and also something that made me enjoy each day at work. So through a lot of hard work, I completed my university degree as well as a degree in systems development almost at the same time. I then landed my first job in technology, a small software company to develop an aircraft maintenance and information system for one of the private airlines in India known as East West Airlines.
So you were getting as close as possible.
I was getting as close as possible, and that being in aviation, it gave me that extra boost.
Yeah.
An opportunity to develop software for the aviation industry that I was so keen about, and it was super exciting.
No, absolutely. Sounds great. How long were you there for? A couple of years?
I was there for a year. I enjoyed it so much that it reaffirmed my decision about a career in technology, and I decided that it was going to be technology that I would pursue. But then a year later, I was lucky to have an opportunity to explore a career path in Dubai.
Okay.
As per common knowledge at that time, a fresher, almost out of university, it was not easy to be absorbed for employment in Dubai, at least at that time.
Yeah.
But fortunately, my credentials at the time, I started off my career with HSBC in Dubai as a junior developer.
How did that opportunity come about then? How did you hear of it?
Uh, my parents were in Dubai, so I had the fortune and luck to actually travel there
Yeah.
and look for an opportunity. And HSBC was an organization that I had my eye on from all the financial industry services industries. Um, and fortunately, because of my credentials, I got absorbed into the bank as a junior developer.
Yeah, naturally, it's obviously one that a lot of people do keep their eye on, and obviously you were fortunate enough to have an illustrious, long-lasting career there that took you all over the world. So tell us a bit more about your journey to date so far, then.
So when I joined HSBC in Dubai, I was initially working on software languages such as Fox Pro and Clipper, that are now considered to be obsolete and ancient. I then very quickly learned how to develop software for the IBM AS400.
Yep.
It was one of the niche skills at the time and in short supply. With this new knowledge, I won an opportunity to administer and develop software for the main banking platforms that run IBM AS400. And in fact, till date, the backbone of the core banking platform for most of the countries globally is run on IBM AS400. So after around 7 years of delving deep into software, executing multiple projects from core banking migrations to implementation of internet banking and telephony, my confidence levels really soared.
Yeah, I bet.
And then I was chosen to be part of the core team to set up the bank's first technology center in India, where I spent 4 years. And I also got an opportunity to set up the first 24 by 7 offshore support center to service the entire Middle East region out there.
That's great. There's two real landmark projects and parts of your career. I mean, there's one interesting part that you mentioned there about you found yourself and positioned yourself as a niche developer. Is that one top tip that you would give to aspiring future leaders, that find a niche, find a lane, and carve that out?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Because at that point in time, it wasn't easy to actually start working on some of the core banking platforms because I did not really have the knowledge of that particular technology. So, what I did was on my own outside work, I got myself educated on this piece of technology called RPG. I did that for a few months, and then I uh, kind of weaned myself into seeking an opportunity to try out that platform. And I tried it out as a trainee to start with, started operations and administration on that platform, and then got an opportunity to start developing software for it. So it was quite a unique journey. And I think what I would say is you just need to believe in yourself and make sure that you act on those beliefs. You go full out, all out to actually make that happen.
Yeah, there's another real lesson in there, isn't there? And a lot of the time today, when you're hiring for different projects and different teams, or when I'm hiring for Imagine for SME consultants to be deployed at the likes of HSBC, self-starters is something that we always get asked for, and people that try and upskill themselves. And you were clearly demonstrating that from an early age, and that obviously enabled you to fast track your career. So I think that's a key development aspect that people can take on board as well. Excellent. So did you move back from Dubai to India then, or did you run this from India, from Dubai?
So I ran this from India for 4 years when I was chosen to set up the first technology center in India. And then I returned back to Dubai, where I held multiple roles from leading architecture to change management to project management functions. This period saw one of my most challenging projects.
Okay.
I accomplished a lot during that time. And then I got an opportunity to lead the entire software delivery function for the region. And this was a huge responsibility, leading the entire region's primary banking technology needs, right from systems development to operations to risk and technology, risk and controls. This was one of my most fulfilling and most enjoyable periods of my career.
So how far into your career at this point were you? How experienced were you?
At this point, I was around 12 years plus.
Okay, so 12 years plus. So you're probably 30, 32. Say you're now responsible for a huge aspect of the software delivery function for the bank. What was the team set up? How many people were reporting into you?
So we had around 200 plus people across India, Middle East, and few supporting teams across the globe. Within Dubai, we had around 70 plus people, a mix of developers, business analysts, project managers. A lot of it was offshored.
Yeah.
It was a small team onshore within Dubai. And the good thing about it, it was like one small family, or rather one big family.
Yeah.
It was really fulfilling working together. And when I think about agile, I would think that was true agility that we had in those days.
Okay, that's an interesting point. I want to cover that with you a little bit later, actually. So at this point, you're 32. Confidence is flying high. You say you've moved back to Dubai. You're running this from Dubai.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're managing, say, 4 or 5 teams, circa 300 people. How mature was that setup when you took over, or did you have to do it all from scratch?
It wasn't all from scratch. It was a team that was already set up, but it was going through quite a big transformation.
Yeah.
Right from people, process, and there was a number of mergers and acquisitions happening at the same time. There was a merger, an acquisition, as well as a divestiture. So I was thrown in bang on at the time when this heap of activity was in progress. So it was quite interesting to actually take on the reins at that point in time. But I would say my predecessor was pretty good. In fact, my previous boss, who did a great job prior to that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So what first and foremost, what was the business reason for that function? And then I want to talk to you about the challenges around the people, the processes, and the technology and locations.
So that function was basically managing technology across the region. And it was a true example of a hub and spoke model where you had 10 plus countries within the region, not having a single developer in those countries, and everything managed and controlled within the single location in Dubai. So it was very unique compared to the rest of the operations in the group at that point in time. Secondly, it was a heavily offshored unit. It was offshore to more than 85%.
Okay.
And it was actually running operations, systems development, and any form of transformation carried out through that team.
And your previous experience then of obviously setting up the offshore development arm and the support center really came in handy at this point. Yeah. Okay. All right. So what were the major challenges?
For me, some of the major challenges at that point in time was delivering a core banking migration program within the Middle East, which was the first of its kind globally.
Yeah.
I had to almost pause my non-working life for an entire year to ensure its success. But it was worth it because it was a big win for the region. And for me, it was a major milestone and turning point in my career.
What sort of hours were you working then? Round the clock?
I'm not too proud of it because I don't think that should be something to be looked up to.
No.
But I had accepted that it was going to be 1 year of, intense work, and the number of hours were pretty crazy. It was definitely more than 12 hours
Yeah.
on an average during that year. But I'd accepted it. I'd accepted it, and I had kind of set the expectations with the family as well at that point in time.
You just took the next question out of my mouth. At what stage of your life and career here, family-wise, did you have children at this point?
Oh yes, in fact, I had two children at that point. They were pretty young, around 4 to 5. It was a challenge, but like I said, my family was very supportive. My wife was super supportive,
Yeah.
and I think that was the catalyst and it was the catalyst that helped me through that period.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, obviously, the conversations that I have with aspiring senior leaders and then with senior leaders that are in that position and understanding the sacrifices that they've had to make throughout that part, but also people coming through the ranks now, seeing that it has been done and communication is key. You'd clearly had honest and transparent conversations with your family to manage expectations and say what it was going to be like, but what that could, that small sacrifice at the time there, what that could do for your career trajectory, it clearly was worth it and paid off.
Definitely, those initial years can be challenging. It was exciting, but yet quite challenging. The working culture in the Middle East versus India versus UK is significantly different. In fact, even within a region, there are many differences between countries. For example, within Europe, the culture between UK, France, and Germany is so different.
Very different.
Understanding and learning the culture, the dynamics, the perspectives has been ever so important, especially if you want to effectively influence,
Yeah.
motivate effectively, and lead. And at the end of the day, get the job done and get it done in the right way with the minimal friction as possible.
Yeah, I mean, how many people did you have directly reporting into you? And I assume you had a matrix management model.
Yeah, in the Middle East, I had around 8 people directly reporting into me. And then, the team across the Middle East and India was under them.
Yeah. And I mean, how good was communication technology at this point? Obviously, we're doing this on Zoom now. The working world of how we see it has transformed dramatically in the last 12 to 15 months. I mean, how was it back then?
It was quite nascent. In fact, when I started off, you had something called crosstalk, where if you wanted to speak to someone else in another country, you would go onto this terminal, ping them, wait for them to respond, and then start a conversation. So outside email, that was the only form of communication. Of course, you could pick up the phone and talk, but there wasn't any collaboration tools like Zoom, definitely not. Leave alone Zoom, you did not have, any of the advanced tools where you could just, communicate with people, collaborate with people as well.
So what we're saying is the next generation coming through have got it easy.
Extremely easy.
Absolutely. Okay. So where did your career take you next?
So when I was at Dubai, after spending a number of years over there, I felt the need to experience working in the mothership of the bank. Coincidentally, two opportunities rose at the same time: a more senior role in Dubai, as well as an exciting role in London. It was quite a tough decision. Dubai was also home then.
Yeah.
Everything in my career and life was flowing ever so smoothly.
Were your parents still there at that point?
My parents were always they moved to India at that point. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But with a bigger opportunity on the table in Dubai, and with just a handshake away from being mine, and on the other hand, London was a fresh new experience, an exciting new venture, a challenging role, the mothership,
Yep.
a lot of unknowns and an element of risk. It was a tough decision for me and the family, but at the end, of course, I chose London. And then in London, I had the opportunity to lead two functions. One was a global vertical to set up and transform global credit and lending across the globe for commercial banking, and simultaneously to lead the European technology arm for commercial banking.
Big roles.
They were pretty much big roles, and leading two functions in parallel was extremely challenging because of the magnitude of the two roles, and also because it was my first time working in London.
Yeah.
A new set of people, a new working culture, a huge array of challenges. And I had accepted that again for the first year, I would be completely focused on work with hardly any time for anything else.
Those conversations, I can imagine your wife's response. This conversation sounds pretty familiar. I think we had this when we got to Dubai.
True, and she was like, "Okay, you're saying 1 year. Let's make sure it's just 1 year."
Yeah.
And then she reminded me after 1 year.
I'm sure she did. So some interesting points there that I'm sure the listeners will be keen to understand. Two major roles. How did you split your time? How did you effectively manage your diary?
I had to. The first few weeks was really difficult, but I took a step back, thought about the tools I had available, the people who I could rely on to make this happen. And I did have most of the people reporting to me in different countries. So I hardly had two directs in London, and everyone else was, in France, Germany, across the globe, because those were the kind of roles that I was leading at that point in time. So it was really challenging to actually make time for each of these, but I had kind of regimented the whole process to start with, because that was the only way at that point in time. And one of these functions being really new, I had to devote more time to it than the other. So it was almost like devoting around 75% of my time on the global role, which was starting off from scratch, and the rest of the time on the European role. And it had to be done with heavy support from not just the people reporting to me, but also the support from my peers at that point in time.
Yeah, talk us through what that peer group looked like.
So the peer group was largely people who were leading similar roles or organizations. Some of them leading other regions which were equally large, like Asia Pacific, US, and then there were peers who were actually leading global verticals, uh, such as trade, uh, digital, etc. And each of these were very open to providing help and support, especially for me coming in new. It was really an advantage to have a group of people who were willing to support and help whenever there was a need. And that help and support was in multiple forms. It was provision of advice when required, provision of resources,
Yeah.
which is always an issue, and generally really good camaraderie between that group of individuals, which really helped me during that time. And beyond that, I think it was not just a peer group, but it was also the leadership, and it was my network that I had garnered from few years ago. So all that put together, it really made things a little bit less difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got that peer group, which becomes a friendship group that you can bounce ideas around, vent if you need to, and just understand that you're not alone at that point, because I think that's quite critical, isn't it? And helps obviously keep you sane and keep you on track.
Very true, very true. They were really helpful at that point.
Absolutely. Okay. How many, you mentioned another aspect there is really trusting the people that reported into you and having that next level down, that management group. How many people did you have in those positions and what did that look like?
So I had direct reports, again, of around 7 to 10 at that point in time. It kept changing every few months because we were going through so much of transformation and we were restructuring the teams. But yes, there were around 7 to 10 people at that point in time, across both these roles.
And how many did they have underneath them going into them?
So there were a total of around 300 plus again, across both these roles. And because I was leading both these functions, I had the benefit of having people running the same role in both the functions. So for example, the head of risk for global credit and lending was also the head of risk for the European technology arm. So you really had the economies of scale in that aspect.
Yeah, and that knowledge transfer. Okay, that's good. So you didn't have sort of 14 to 20 reporting into you then? You had there wasn't 7 to 10 from each stream, each program, or?
I mean, I could have had that many, but it didn't make sense to actually do that. And secondly, it's important to empower your people to do more, and that's when you can see, their brilliance coming through, shining through.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a really valid point. I think a lot of people I've spoken to say once they get past 10, it's very difficult to really understand and to be able to motivate and empower and help and challenge and be there for more than 10 people is quite difficult. Obviously, in doing your day job as well. Okay, so that must have been a great success. What happened next?
It was, like I said, the initial years were challenging. But when it came to interacting with some of the very senior leaders in the industry, it sometimes made me feel a bit insecure. It made me question the way I was going about my interactions, and sometimes even my actions. And in times like these, I often sought feedback and help from my colleagues, like I said, and the rest of the team, to ensure that what I was doing in the right way.
Was there any particular feedback that you got that really helped you?
There were multiple. Like, I cannot point my finger on any specific one, but very frankly, in situations like these, there is no rule book. There is no training that you can go through. You really have to trust your instincts, but also trust your colleagues and seek advice. Know when you're outside your comfort zone. Know when to ask for help, and know the difference between, do I go with my gut or do I seek advice? And those were really accelerated learning experiences for me. And then there were times when the situation and the job at hand was so high profile, but I felt a learning curve to go through in order to really succeed. Example, embarking on a journey to build a new digital bank in the cloud for the first time.
Yeah.
Albeit I've had the solid foundation and experience with technology, my experience with the cloud was so close to nil. This put heavy demands on my ability to learn fast. And yes, we do have subject matter experts to help.
Yep.
However, when you are leading something so important, so challenging, so high profile, having sound knowledge is paramount.
Yeah, and ultimately it's your responsibility, right? You're accountable. So let's talk about that. We're talking about Kinetic, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I want to talk to you now as if you were still in that role. So describe that role, describe how it came about and what your vision looked like, and then you can tell me if it turned out that way.
I was, at that point in time, just prior to that opportunity coming up, I was planning to actually leave the organization because I wanted to, experience a new playing field, a new challenge outside the organization in which I spent so much of time.
Interesting.
But just at that point in time, this opportunity came up to run or to lead a new digital bank, and it was too good to say no to. So I took it on, and it was about building a digital bank from scratch for the first time, and it was no easy task. It required us to change our way of thinking, change the way we worked, change the culture, and truly rejuvenate governance. And all of this was seriously challenging. And a great catalyst was the amazing team with the business at that point, with technology, with the supporting functions, all coming together. And very importantly, support from the top of the house in the bank.
Yeah.
So it was truly unique, I would say, in what the proposition looked like and how it was supposed to be delivered.
Yeah, because you need that backing from the top down, but then ultimately you need the people. So um, a big part of how we've always worked together with Imagine and HSBC is, the advisory on the strategy, or the strategy is created, and then obviously we've provided SMEs to help execute against that. What did the setup, how did it look like? How many people from the core team did you already have at HSBC and think, right, I can use those guys? And then how many externals? What was the sort of percentage split on those, and how did it all work?
We started off with a small team. When I say small, it was a small team from HSBC. It was just few people, maybe 5 or 6, and then we had a significant arm from consultancies helping us out. But then we transformed and morphed that pretty rapidly into a rather very much an in-house shop with, again, around at peak, it was around 350 plus people. It started off with 100% team in London, but then very quickly transitioned to an 85% India team and a 15% London-based team. It was a mix of the business and technology and supporting functions working together within the same location, problem solving together. One of the unique things that we had was you had functions like governance, for example, risk, compliance, security, legal, all embedded within the same team,
Yeah.
problem solving together. And what that did was it eliminated the need to seek approvals after 6 months or 7 months from those functions, which how we usually tend to do things like that.
Always
So it
helps.
eliminated that, and it helped those people come together and actually problem solve together at the initial stage itself.
Yeah, you mentioned a mindset shift when you set up something new like Kinetic, and it's something completely brand new. What sort of, how did you go about changing the minds? Obviously, you had to win the minds and hearts of a lot of people in the bank. Was there a lot of resistance?
Actually, there wasn't resistance. There was, I can say, complete support right from the top. I was actually amazed at the kind of support we got. From our end, from the program's end, we did our best to make sure we engaged all the right people in the organization, irrespective of whether they were connected to the program or not. Because in some way or the other, we knew that we would need their support. So we connected with all the key CIOs from the bank, the COOs. We propagated what the program was to the organization, and we asked for help as and when we needed it. We did set up a lightweight governance wherein we could exchange views, we could talk about some of the decisions that we were going to take, and ask for support, or if there was any reservations that people had along the way. And what that did was it really helped us speed up and fast path some of the decisions that we were taking, as well as some of the deliveries that were in progress. I think that whole framework, I would say, helped us a lot to move things forward. And then in terms of the ways of working, we were all located together largely in London, but we also had this huge arm sitting in India. And at times that was a challenge. So what we did was we started building the mindset and culture and behavior of Agile, which I think is the most important piece
How
of
did you do that?
uh, first of all, making sure we communicated enough with people, making sure people understood what we were trying to do and why we were trying to do it, uh, building coaches and evangelists along the way to make sure that these people could actually be scattered around the team to feel the pulse and guide the team wherever needed. And that was required on an ongoing basis because people leave, new people join in, people's perspective of ways of working, of agile is completely different. So you have to constantly, coach and guide the team on this piece. So I think
what does Agile look like to you then? How did you set it up?
my experience has shown that agile is more than a methodology. It's more than just sticky notes on the wall with actions. It's more than just being able to deliver technology quickly. Firstly, it's a mindset, a culture, a behavior. Secondly, it needs the organization and the team to be part of it, spanning across technology, business, operations, and supporting functions. It cannot be done in isolation. It cannot be done just within a silo. Thirdly, it's the methodology. There are different forms of agile frameworks. These should be used as a template or a guiding principle. It cannot be taken and applied blindly. It needs to be adopted but tweaked based on the situation. Fourthly, it's planning. You cannot underestimate planning and diligence, especially when it's a multi-million dollar project with a large team and dependencies. You need to have the rigor of planning. A lot of people use agile as an excuse not to plan properly, but that's totally a rookie error. You need to know your target destination, keep your bearings, pivot if necessary. These are so essential to the agile project. And fifth, it's communication. I
Yeah.
think this is the most crucial and the one where agile teams fall over the most. And it's not just about communication within the team either. It's essential to have an open channel to those within the team and also the wider organization. Without effective comms, you are really asking for trouble. And lastly, like I said, it's really essential to have these people, you may call them coaches or evangelists, scattered around the team to feel the pulse and guide the team.
Absolutely. The coaches, the agile coaches, obviously it's an area that a practice that we have at Imagine. Did you bring externals in for that, or were you training up your own guys?
We had a mix of external and internal. So depending on the situation, if we had the people internally, we leveraged that capability, but we also relied on externals. And it kept changing along the way based on what the availability was.
Yeah, naturally. How what are your thoughts then on how it turned out? You must be pleased.
Yeah, very, very pleased because it was one of the first. We broke ground on new technology, uh, same day custom onboarding, which was really new,
Yeah, very.
providing credit in minutes, the first digital platform on the cloud, 100% microservice based platform. So there were a number of firsts. I've just mentioned a few here. It was very exciting for the whole team to be part of something like this, and not just for the team, but even the organization. People just wanted to hear about what Kinetic was doing. They wanted to be part of it, and in some cases, they wanted it in their own countries. So we
Absolutely.
often got questions as to, when can we have this uh, this lovely system into our own countries. So it created this whole vibe across the team. People were proud to be part of it, and it was really energizing. It was energizing to the people. It was energizing for the organization, and in a lot of ways, it was built to be a template that could be used to transform the other areas within the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything you've just described there is great, and I can tell by talking to you and obviously previous conversations we've had the passion you have for that project and how it's worked out. You must be really proud. So that's great. Looking to the future, then, Samir, what's next for you?
So after I have gotten the taste of the recent digital and cloud technologies, um, I've decided to, take that rich experience of my 25 years within the bank, as well as the digital experience, and do more of the same. So my plan is to, uh, now that I have left the bank, pursue my goals of doing more on the cloud, doing more of digital banking, focusing a lot on the SME sector, and using that experience that I've gained over these years to put it to something of a similar kind. And that could be, either a fintech, or it could also be some of the large banks. I'm at that point of my career right now where I have these few paths that are open, uh, and it's time for me now to make a decision on what I want to do and where I want to do it. But it's definitely going to be within the digital space and within the cloud space.
Absolutely. So what drives you then? Where does your passion for this come from?
So, like I mentioned before, I love solving big problems through technology. I've always been energized by that. I'm very driven by ambitious goals, setting the bar high. It creates a sense of excitement, the need to achieve, and the need to get to that mountaintop.
Yeah.
And along that journey, I enjoy garnering support from my team, the sponsors, the stakeholders, the act of influencing people to set the bar high and then go all out to achieve that goal. It energizes me, it motivates me, and it helps me do the same with my team. Feedback from peers, my leaders, it's another form that boosts me. I find it very energizing. Irrespective if it's good or bad, it helps me recognize people's expectations, where the bar is, and how far behind or ahead I am from that bar. That knowledge is of great value. It helps me gauge myself, it makes me feel more empowered, and it helps me plan and act in accordance. And lastly, but very importantly, seeing people achieve their dreams, their personal development, and knowing that you have played a part in it, it's truly very fulfilling. And when you have coached and mentored someone who turns out to be successful, it can be very rewarding and energizing. So yeah, that's what drives me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a common passion that we both share, that we've discussed previously. So, I mean, there's an aspect there that we've not touched upon here, but what are the most important things you look for in people? You've onboarded a lot of consultants, you've hired a lot of permies globally across the world. I mean, what are some of the most important things you look for?
Attitude, drive, and honesty. Yes, technical capability, work experience, and soft skills are essential. However, I consider those as a given, and some of those can be learned as well. However, attitude, drive, honesty, and personal values are built over time and relatively difficult to change very quickly. I think these factors can create a significant difference. It can help you excel, it can help you spread that vibe across the team. It can have a really powerful effect. On the other hand, when I look at leadership qualities, its personal values, its integrity, these are non negotiable. With higher transparency and expectations in the world today, personal conduct and professional behavior is out there for everyone and anyone to challenge and comment on. Leaders must live their personal values and integrity, whatever the circumstances. Secondly, hard work. You cannot be successful without it. Day-to-day preparation, learning, thinking, listening, reaching out for feedback. It isn't easy, but it's the reality of a banking domain that's so very regulated today. And lastly, communication. This is even more important today, and we have seen it during the pandemic. Because of uncertainty, ambiguity, and the fear amongst colleagues and customers, being a good communicator is very important for leadership. It's sometimes you can enhance and develop it. No one is born with it. It's a skill that's learned and developed over time. So yes, it is one of those key elements as well.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Samir, it's been great talking to you. I've really enjoyed listening, hearing, and understanding your journey so far. What a fantastic career with HSBC. Congratulations on that. Obviously, you have taken a well-rested break and ready to go for a new challenge. That's That's great. Obviously, if people want to reach out to you, if the listeners want to have a conversation with you, I assume you're okay for people to do that.
Very much. Anytime, Martin.
And obviously, we're in conversations with you from Imagine anyway. I've got some quick fire questions for you. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. So I want to ask you just some quick fire questions, and then obviously your answers are just there. We'll go for it. Okay. So what's 3 pieces of advice you would give to the younger generation coming through, or yourself when you started?
Believe in yourself. If you have the belief, the next step is to stay resilient and stay persistent. You have to work hard and do your best, even when the work may sometimes seem very unpleasant. Always trust it, always treat it like your own business. It works wonders.
Great piece of
Fulfill your
advice.
responsibility, even when doing so may seem inconvenient. Marry passion with reason. And finally, do not get overly excited when life is going well, and do not get too down when it goes badly.
Absolutely. Great piece of advice there. I really like that. What are the 3 resources you use for self-development? So it could be books, publications, podcasts, whatever.
I think with technology constantly evolving, it's extremely important to keep yourself abreast with new developments so that you can keep sharpening your saw. I do this by attending informative forums and conferences, a lot of online learning, audiobooks on self-development, biographies, and technology, a load of informative technical videos, which are very effective. And at work, I also seek out learning sessions with experts in the team. Posting online articles myself so that I can share my perspective and also seek feedback and engagement. Certification course, for example, I'm currently preparing to get myself certified as a professional Google Cloud architect. And lastly, exploring new subjects, which may be non-work related. Try something new. For example, I started playing the guitar, started learning about cryptocurrency trading, garden landscaping, and the latest favorite one has been to skim the surface of astrophysics, going deeper into evolution, which I find so intriguing.
Absolutely. Great advice there. Okay. Thanks very much for that, Samir. Well, that's it. We've come to the end of the show. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. We'll obviously keep in touch, and I'm keen to see where you land next. I'm obviously great. It will be an unbelievable role, and I wish you the best of luck. If anyone is listening, obviously you heard Samir earlier, feel free to reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's very open, and he obviously can offer advice and seeks advice. So thank you, and very much good luck to you. And then to the listeners, thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed listening. If you've enjoyed it, please share amongst peers and colleagues within the industry who you think it could be interesting for. And obviously, if you want to participate and you want to be on the show, then please get in touch with me. My email address is martin.hartley@imagine.co.uk. And that's it from us. Bye for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin.